We're live and what's up, everybody out there? We're just making sure we live and everything is going good on here. And we want to thank people that's going to be joining us. Yep, there we go. We live. Let me share that. I'm like sharing that. All right. Yo. What up? It's your boy, Big Lee. And this is the Dontgettricked Podcast. And we got Vicki, my co-host today, filling in for Drea. Drea's out there on vacation, out there in Texas. And ironically, we got Vicki from Texas joining us today. Vicki, what's up? How are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you? I'm still a New Yorker at heart, though, even though I live in Texas.
You straight Texas now, like no. It ain't no New Yorker. I'm Florida. No, I'm joking. I'm Newburgh to the end. You know what I mean?
That's when you're a New Yorker, it stays in your heart.
It's like it's tough. It's a different whole breed when you're a New Yorker, and always gonna be from Newburgh, New York, and always gonna be a New Yorker. You're gonna be always a Whopper Fallers.
Wappinger Fallers.
Yeah, that's a good title for you.
I lived in the Bronx. I feel like that gives me some credibility.
BX, throw it up. Throw it up. So we got a dope episode ahead of us today. Like I said, we coming live to y'all. We like to bring everything live. Dontgettricked Podcast. Today we talking about mental health, and we got a special guest with us. Mental health, it affects, I think, everybody. What you think, Vicki?
Yeah, I think that probably, I don't think there's a single person alive who has not been affected in some form or fashion by mental health. So I'm really excited for the guest that we have today.
Yep, and we're gonna be long hair. I'm gonna introduce her. Her name is Tanisha. She's a speaker, published author, licensed psychotherapist, and a resiliency coach, mental health coach. And without further ado, I'm gonna bring her on and welcome her. Tanisha, how you doing? Welcome to the Dontgettricked Podcast.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. I gave people a little rundown, of the, your attributes, your status. But if you want to tell the people more a little bit about yourself.
I think you summed it up. I was thinking every time I come on something, I have to think about, wow, I did that. I'm like reminded by my own bio what I've done. What can I say? I'm a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist. I have published a book back in 2017, Worth the Wait, available on Amazon. I do a lot of public speaking events. I've done some brand ambassading. What else can I say? I'm a musician. I sing. I thank God. You know what I mean? My goal in life, and I say that all humbly, is to leave this earth empty. I believe that we all have tons and tons of gifts, and very few people really tap into each of them on this earth, right? So my goal, I tell people all the time, is when it's my time, when I'm 150, I'm going to leave empty. I've used every gift, every inkling that God has given me. And that's my goal. You know what I mean? So I kind of do a little bit of everything.
I love that.
Yep, that's great. And more importantly, you from Newburgh, New York too, just like me.
Yes.
So that's another goal. Hey, it's something. It's something.
I don't know.
But that's why it's even dope. Like I said, when you see people from where you grew up at doing good things in life, and that's basically making a positive impact on the community, on just people in general on Earth, as you say, leaving it all out there. And so, like I said, we thank you for joining us. And like I said, I'm excited about it because mental health is, it's a big topic, especially nowadays. You see a lot more people starting to be open towards it. And
Right.
one of the big people and that I follow that's a big advocate on it is Charlemagne the God. And
Yes.
he's a
Yep.
big help, trying to get people like, especially like black men,
Yes.
and coming from like Newburgh and where people from the hood, a lot of them is like, they think they look at it as a form of weakness. And it don't, to talk about your feelings, and therapy and stuff like that. It's people like, nah, I'm good. I figured it out on my own. They go into that mode.
Right.
And I know I see it with myself. I see it in my wife. When I tell her sometimes like, yo, you should, I can handle it. I could get through it myself. Like, nah, this how, like I said, growing up, if you went and talk to a therapist, you probably looked at it as like, yo, this person crazy. Like, they got to go see a therapist. Like,
right.
So that stigma, that bad stigma on it was always out there. And I'm glad that now, it's not a form. I had people that hit me up when I told them about what the episode was going to be on. I was like, yo, I go see a therapist for, 2 years now. And it helped me so much, so.
No,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that from the beginning, from jump, because, even though I have a love with social media, one thing that I can say, social media, right? Like we all say, the internet is undefeated. So it's out there, right? There's 24/7 access at our fingertips, literally. And one of the things that social media has done has made mental health, if we want to say, trendy. They've made it acceptable. It's more in the forefront. More people everyone on social media has a platform, right? Whether they have 100 followers or 22 million or something, whatever the case is. Everyone has a soapbox. Everyone is given a platform with that. So mental health is really not so much behind the scenes anymore. Like, oh, don't talk about that. People are becoming more forthright, with it. And it's becoming more acceptable, and communities are building because of it. And it's interesting you talked about, in certain neighborhoods in our Black and brown communities, it has been taboo for a long time, but there's really concerted efforts to bring it to the forefront. Because listen, when we're living in a time of a pandemic, when we're living in a time when people are killing themselves, literally, when there's social media bullying, all that stuff, there's big flags. Like, this is needed, right? Like, we can't ignore this. We can't just say, okay, go, you got mental health, in a lot of families, that would be that family member in the room that they kept the door closed. You know what I'm saying? Hush, hush. Yeah. We didn't entertain that. But I'm thankful for the media, and I'm thankful for where we live today, where it's becoming more and more acceptable, and I'm thankful for that.
One thing that I learned through my own experience, and I was one of those people who was like, oh, I don't need therapy, I'm good. Back when I was like full-fledged being a lawyer and whatnot, I actually found out, right, through my own inner work, working with someone who helped me through my own trauma, because I thought, I haven't had trauma, I'm good. But trauma can start from a very early age of like 6 years old, from mere fact of something as simple as like trying to get your parents to play with you and them saying no. That can be trauma. Like, anything that causes us pain and it sticks with us, it can cause trauma. And so that's why I was like saying to Lee, like, I think that pretty much everybody has some sort of mental health that they're dealing with. They just either won't acknowledge it, don't know it, don't really quite understand it, or something else.
Right. No, I love that term. And I often say to my clients, trauma is a big umbrella. It is. It's a huge topic, right? So I'll have clients that come to me like, I never experienced trauma. Like, no one's died to me. My parents weren't in jail or on drugs, so I'm good, right? And then obviously we have people that is their story, right? But this is the way I like to define trauma, like just breaking it down in layman's terms. Trauma is anything that affects you to the point that where you have an emotional tie to it. And sometimes it's sudden, oftentimes it's not seen, right? And of course, drug use, abuse fall under that. But it's anything that holds sentimental value to you, that's switched up, that changed. I like to say it's kind of like the kitchen rug. If it was ripped from under your feet, right? Like you're kind of like, oh, I gotta find my stance again. That's trauma, right? If I have an emotional attachment to the office I'm in, I use this analogy, and I'm told tomorrow you got to move your office. If that holds sentimental value to me, it could be traumatic for me to move my office.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So I'm glad you said that, because everyone, I believe, has some sort of trauma. Now, the severities of it, right, and the frequencies of it vary from person to person, but it definitely is something we all can relate to at some point.
Yeah, and for the people watching, I have an example of something that seems small that is trauma. For people who are like, well, I don't know if I had trauma. When I was in 3rd grade, I told my friends this guy that I had this boy that I had a crush on, and they went and told him, and so everybody knew. And so in 3rd grade, I learned, oh, I can't trust people. People are untrustworthy. And from that moment forward, it was so hard for me to trust people, and I had to learn how to trust again. I had major trust issues for decades because of that incident. That's trauma.
Right. It's something that happened and you carried it in your subconscious. And for decades, right, you just carried it with you, not even knowing that that was something that was playing out in your behavior, in your patterns of behavior and your negative schemas, which is the way we think oftentimes. So, yeah, absolutely. Like, it really is what we call clinically psychodynamic therapy. When we head back, like people like to joke, like, what happened to you at 7? But that really does hold significance when we're looking at your present day. So absolutely, that's absolutely traumatic,
Yeah, and like I said, there's different, like I said, Vicki gave her example of, trauma that she faced, and I look back at it, where I had different deaths and stuff growing up, even when I was in college, dealing with cousins that were murdered and things like that. And it makes you, to me, it makes me appreciate life, but other people, especially, their family members could be, they're going to be affected more about it. And then I take it, there's women, now you see all the women that's coming out, years later with different stories of the Me Too, that affects them in relationships going forward.
Right.
And, it's mental health. And like I said, and this is, maybe being naive or being like, I don't want to say too hard-headed, but I'm like, yo, build a bridge, just get over it. And that's how I thought for the longest, in terms of like, because there's sometimes, like I said, I grew up with both parents. A friend of mine, that dude I told, he told me that, he sees a therapist, and he still got daddy issues, and it's, to me, I'm like, I always had that like, I'm like, yo, my father, luckily he was around when I grew up, from birth until he passed away, and did everything for me. But I always had that mindset of, if he's not there, he don't want to be a part of it, then I'm just gonna be like, nah, guess what? I'm gonna have a good life without you. But me, not taking into consideration that that's affecting that person growing up, and then how to, hopefully they're, being opposite to their children when they have children. And but I had to take a step back, with like, nah, like, that's something real, and that's something heavy, because imagine, and I look back on myself, imagine if my father wasn't there, and all the joy that I had with him. And it made, like I said, it started making me think and I'm gonna mess the word up, but make me feel for him even more.
Yeah.
So.
No, and what you're talking about, is a resiliency factor. That's what I tap into with people when they do my coaching courses, right? Resiliency is with the barriers we're given. The level of resiliency, we meet those barriers, right? And I like to say a good example of that is, like, look at two brothers raised in the same house, right? We all know a story like this. One brother stood on the stoop, right? Maybe until he's 50, 60, maybe sold drugs, whatever the case is, just didn't really move beyond his circumstance. The other one because he's an NBA player, right? So what, they grew up in the same house and with the same struggles, saw the same things, but what makes one do something different? Their life is so different than maybe their siblings. And it really is about those innate characteristics and the resiliency factor of that person. And resiliency really is a strength. That's just how it's defined, of how to get over that barrier or the barriers that we're given, you know, and where do we pull that from? So if I ever did extended research, it would definitely be in resiliency.
Yep, yeah, and like I said, and another thing too, like I said, the Vicki's talking about the trauma. A lot of times, people don't look at that as mental health, because when you think mental health, you think of maybe schizophrenic, and people like that, you know, got actual health issues and not dealing with problems. People that's like depressed, and you're not taking those into consideration as like, yo, that's something that's going on up here that they don't know how to deal with. And I was looking at some stuff, and I'm like, you know, ADHD I seen was like part of mental health and stuff, and not even thinking. I'm just thinking like, oh, this is something that somebody takes some pills for, and they good, but not knowing that's weighing on them too. Like that's part of, you know, something they're battling.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, you know, I like to say this, like, if you're a person that is familiar with mental health and you're open and understanding it, that's great. If you haven't been, I can almost guarantee you there will come a point in everybody's time when they don't have the skill set to get over something they're presented with. They weren't ready for it. They weren't prepared for it. And even, let's say, like, it could be something that they even expect. Sometimes it's the losing of a loved one, right? With terminal illness. It could be years that person takes to pass away, and they still have trauma, even though it was expected and what they went through. And all that to say, like, that's when therapy and mental health plays a part in being important in saying, listen, I don't have the skills to get through this. And that's when we see, I really believe no man is an island unto himself. We really need to, you know, reach out to people. That's why we have specialists. That's why we have advocates, right? That's why we have resources, community resources, you know, experts who can say, listen, I don't know how to get through this, and I need help. I need the skills. I need the coping skills, the life skills, the strength skills to get over this hump in my life. And really what therapy is, it's to help you with that certain part of your life. And what we like to say is kind of, it gets you back to baseline, to how you were operating before. Yeah, you know, you went through depression, you went through grief, you went through loss, you went through, I'm just going through a life transition. Some people just feel like that. Like I want more, right? I've outgrown where I am. How do I get from A to B? Therapy plays a part in that. And I like to say it takes time, but it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
Depending on the severity of trauma, but it works. That's what it's for.
So one thing I've learned is, well, two things I've learned is that when we have some sort of trauma, something that affects our mental health, it stays in our body. Like our nervous system holds on to it, and it, like, things can trigger you and you just jump back into that thing that caused you the trauma without realizing it, because you think that somebody's tone of voice reminded you of something. You immediately went back to that, and that trauma then showed up. And the other thing that that came up to mind too is that there's so somebody told me that it's like sometimes we go into this pendulum where our baseline, like you said, right, is like we're in the middle of the pendulum. Some trauma occurs, and we then go to one end of the pendulum, and sometimes we stay on that end of the pendulum, whether it's like defensive mechanisms or something to protect ourselves, chip on our shoulders, judgments on other people, you know, snapping at people who are just trying to make a joke, and you then end up taking it too seriously, or maybe getting really upset, overly upset at things, or easily like ready for a fight, whatever the case is. And so I guess what you're saying, that the therapy helps people get from that extreme end of the pendulum to try to balance back in the middle, because sometimes people will find out, oh, you know, I did that, but then they swing all the way to the other end, and then they try to avoid it at all costs, and they overcompensate. So the therapy helps you just get that balance in the middle where you can just really be yourself again.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. Baseline means operating in your normal self. So yeah, trauma comes, people don't know how to deal with it. Trauma has muscle memory. Absolutely. Your body will respond. Even your conscious and your subconscious can be triggered, right? That's a real hot word. People use that word over commonly, but they can be triggered into thinking about what happened, whether it was 2 days ago or 20 years ago. So absolutely, that's what therapy is for, to give you the life skills to kind of bring you back right into baseline.
So Star asked a question. She said, did y'all's culture, race, parents look down on therapy? So I know for me, I think therapy was always just seen the way that America had been seeing it, which was like you only need therapy if you're like in some deep hole. But yeah, I mean, in my culture, it was always about like just suck it up and just do what you're supposed to do and stop crying, stop complaining, stop being so sensitive. And I was told that being emotional was like it was seen as a bad thing. So I really closed off my emotions for decades. Because for me, expressing my emotions was seen as a sign of weakness, and I was too sensitive. So I went on the other end, and I actually cut my emotions off so much that I've had people who could jump and they would scare me, and inside I'd be like, whoa, but then outside I'd be like, oh, hey, what's up? That was how much I shut myself down because it really ingrained with me. So I don't know about the therapy part, but I think it's connected. Like getting emotional about things was seen down in my culture.
Absolutely. No, culture, race plays a huge part. We in culture and races, that's a pinnacle part. That's a foundational part. Every culture and every race has their own traditions, has their own behavior, has their own rituals, right? So that's learned behavior from a very young age. Sometimes in the mother's womb, those things are already carried out. So it absolutely plays a big part in therapy, the acceptance of it. I have clients from different races that not a problem, that they come to therapy. Others that, want to make sure, is this exclusive? This is confidential, right? Nobody could even, they would never know that I came to therapy, right? Even if my family called or even if my friends came here, because of how it's looked upon, in their culture and ethnicity. So absolutely, that's a huge part of it.
Lee, I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Nope, can't hear you. Nope, can't hear you. Okay, well, while he figures that out, I actually have something that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned, the womb. So that is also something new that I learned as I'm going through my whole inner self-exploration is about how being in the womb, we also like take on things from our mom, our grandmother, like all these things. And when I first heard it, I was just like, that sounds crazy. But then the more self-exploration I do, the more it makes sense to me that, yeah, like we're such sensitive beings that, of course, we're going to take on the things that have been unhealed or not worked on from our, previous, like our mom and whatever. And especially like we're in her womb and she's feeling something and we're like, no, we got to take care of her. So let's take this on. Can you clarify more about that?
Sure. Neonatal care. Why do you think it's so important in stress? So studies are out. People have, there is scientific backing, some of it, saying that absolutely what happens while we're in our mother's womb with neonatal care affects us, right? There's other studies and experts who say, no, that's kind of hogwash. That, I think that's really subjective of what you believe. There's also people who really believe they have memories of being in their mother's womb. They feel like they can go back in the subconscious of remembering that feeling and that image and remembering that moment. Wild, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that it's all connected. I have a holistic way of looking at therapy and approaching therapy, right? So I believe we're always trying to seek balance. So A over here is not by itself while B's over here. They are all connected in some way. And they're all connected for our greater good, to be balanced and to be operating at our best selves. And when one of those things is off, balance, we feel that. So absolutely.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on the fact that we're not all separated, that we're all connected in some form or fashion. I believe that too. And I think that my way of explaining that to people is like, sometimes you meet people and you just get an immediate feel for them. Like you just feel their vibes and you're just like, oh, like you and I, we're going to be best friends. We're going to get along. And sometimes you meet people, you're like, whoa, I'm not going to get along with that person. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we can feel each other. Like we're not complete separate beings.
Right. Absolutely. There was a question there. Did you catch that?
Yeah. So Star had asked if religion or prayer helps with the trauma, the mental health that we experience.
I think, again, that's subjective. You know, do you believe in that? There's some people who are not religious and not, you know, they don't believe in prayer. So, hey, I want to offer this as something that can help. How can that help me if I don't even believe in it? Right. And a lot of that can tie to ethnic and cultural traditions, rituals, our upbringing, our learned behavior, what we saw. And then some absolutely believe in the spiritual realm. You know, I think this generation is more open to spiritual things than we've seen in a long time. So a lot of people want to tap into that realm. They want to believe that, whether it's through organized religion, whether it's, you know, through new age stuff, but absolutely, like religion and prayer. Do I believe personally? Absolutely. I believe they help. Me being a Christian myself, like that's a lot of basis of, you know, I provide that Christian counseling if it's needed. But for those that don't, you know, that it's going to be subjective to what your belief system is.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I actually have a thought on that. My thought is, because like from my observation, prayer and religion definitely can help, but then it also can not help at the same time, depending on how you use it, just like how you do anything. So there are some people who they take the prayer and they all they do is just, you know, send their prayers to God, but there's no listening. There's no like feeling, there's no listening. It's just like, please do this, please do this, please do this. And that probably won't be as helpful as someone else who's just like, you know, Jesus, I'm listening, please help me. And then they're like also like having that space and they can also listen to what God is trying to say to them, perhaps, right? You know, I feel like it depends on how people approach the prayer and the religion. And I think like another aspect, it could be like, let's say someone takes religion, they're like, this is the only thing that I'm going to listen to, and I'm not going to listen to anything else, anybody else, you know, that might not be helpful, because if in their prayers, God actually was sending them someone outside of their religion to help them in some way, but they've chosen to only see like, you know, this portion. So I think it really depends on how it gets approached.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's not one answer to any multi-layered problem, right? When we look at weight loss, if drinking enough water was the answer to weight loss, it wouldn't be $1 billion industry, right? What helps with successful weight loss when we look scientifically at it, right? Numbers don't lie. Data doesn't lie. It's getting adequate rest, making sure your cortisol levels are at a decent place, right? Managing your stress well, getting enough sleep, eating the right foods. Some people want to talk about your blood type being part of that, being hydrated, knowing the difference between whether you're hungry or thirsty. So it's all of those things, right? All of those parts, all of those seeds that contribute to the greater result. Same thing with therapy. I get weary if anybody comes to me saying, I know the answer. It's meditating.
Yeah.
Well, meditating might be a part of that. I'm a little unconventional, okay? But in the sense of my approach is, but what else are you doing? Mm-hmm. Praying is a part of that, but you got to carry out what you prayed for. So it's all of those things, right? Prayer, meditating, being intentional, maybe changing my circle, working on my mindset, right? How do I think? Looking back at what was I raised with? What was learned behavior? What did my parents do? What did I have growing up? What didn't I have? So it's all those things that are contributing to the end result of that person getting better, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And especially, I guess what I like to say is like, you can't box a person up, right? And like just have a little
Right,
guide
right.
book, like, this is how you handle being a human, you know?
Right,
Like,
right. No, absolutely not. You know, I don't, there's not one cure for everything. Every person that comes to me is a different person. I mean, they come with their own thing. I don't have a cookie cutter, you know, clinical intervention, therapeutic intervention to say, do this and you'll be better. I got to know that person from the inside. I got to follow the trail. I need to know what they're coming in with, what they were raised with, and what they want to work on now.
yeah.
You know, even in good therapy, you want to work on goals. Like you want to have therapeutic goals. Okay, in the next 3 to 6 months, what are we focusing on? Right? I just want to be better. That's great. How?
Mm-hmm.
My clients go, oh, wow. Wow. Well, I guess I don't want to be so angry. So we want to work on anger management. Yeah. And I want to make more money. I feel like I'm stuck. Okay. So we want to look at maybe financial literacy. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a whole gamut of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when we make, right, those short-term goals, what do we feel like? Accomplished. When I can look back and say, man, I remember coming in with this symptom, but now 3 months later, I've shown up to therapy. I'm present. I'm intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even through the good and bad and so sessions, I'm learning skills and applying them. And golly gee, I see change.
Yeah. You know what I really love about working with a coach or a therapist or a counselor is that they help you see blind spots about yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I learned, because I worked with a business coach, and his question was, what do you want? And I gave him some sort of cookie cutter like response, like, well, I guess what I want is, and I gave like this correct answer, and he read between the lines things that I couldn't see at the time, which was that I felt pressure to give the correct answer. And so he had to let me know, like, hey, there's no correct answer. You know, you don't have to give me what you think that I want to hear. And I was like, oh. And then he was like, so what do you want? And I was like, I just want to be happy, you know? And I think that that's important. Like you sometimes we need somebody to help us see things we can't see about ourselves.
Absolutely. That's what we're trained to do. You know, so my clients will sit there and have these aha moments like, I never saw that. I'm like, well, yeah, I went through a lot of licensing and testing and schooling for this and student loans, not to mention, right? So I'm trained to see that. That's why no man is an island unto themselves. That's why if the resources are there, if you have insurance there, take advantage of it, right? I'm trained to see things you don't see. And the same thing with coaching. You know, you had a coach, you had somebody that looked at your whole life, right? And looking at the things that you might not be connecting and really asking, well, what is it that you want? And you know what you explain? A lot of times what people come into therapy for is not really the real issue.
Yeah.
I like to tell them, listen, it's the tip of the iceberg, right? So somebody comes to me, I'm just angry. I blow up at everything. I want to kill somebody. Right? I'm on the road. I get pissed. I'm at work. I hate my boss. I hate my parents. I hate my spouse. So that's the tip of the iceberg. But as we get deeper, it can go to really unresolved trauma of a depressed state that they've never felt recognized. They never had resolution to it. They don't have any answers to things. They're left in this space of, I don't even know what the hell happened. Well, no wonder you're angry.
Yeah.
Right? For 10, 15 years.
Can y'all hear me good now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. My computer just stopped working for some reason. I couldn't even get back on. I had to switch to my phone.
Oh, it's all good.
And stuff. So I felt like I hopped in a double dutch thing and I can't even get in the middle of it. Like man, it's a back and forth thing. You know that, hey, you know, big league back and stuff. So yeah, like I got a 3-man we to get back in the conversation.
You got a strong arm.
Yeah, like hold on, man. They going back and forth. I'm just here
Yo,
smiling.
remember
You know,
me?
yeah, I know I got a good smile and stuff, but that ain't enough.
Lee's like, I had this idea, all right?
Yeah, like, man, I'm just sitting there like, oh, yeah. First, I'm like, damn, can they hear me or am I just still muted and stuff too? Or no, it's just me being ignored, you know?
It's all good.
So,
that awkward kid that's trying to like fit in.
yeah.
That's too funny.
Yeah, it's like, I'm like, man. But I did have a question because, you know, a lot of the stuff on our podcast started to do with families and relationships. Do couple go to you for help like that too?
They do. I'll be
Or
honest.
is it harder? Because I know like there's times where I tell my wife, I was like, yo, we need to go see a therapist. Like I said, every couple go through it. Ain't nobody
Oh, yeah.
perfect. If you perfect, but there's times I'm like, yo, because I'm like, to me, I'm like, yo, you do certain things. Like we need to, you know, go talk to somebody, or you know, you're dealing with certain things. Maybe I'm dealing with, I feel a certain way. Like so,
Right.
like, yo, you know, we need to be able to express that way without, you know, if I'm telling you one thing, you telling me another, and then we both just get upset, you know, not
Right.
getting no resolution from it.
No, absolutely. Couples therapy is definitely a thing. Do I get that? Yes. Do I refer out? Yes. Because I can do it. I've done couples therapy. You got to know what your niche is and what your strength is. It's
Yeah.
hard work. You know, you're taking two people that might have their, okay, I say it like this. You're taking two people who have their own different ways of viewing, right? Their own trauma, their own life, merging together to be one, right? Till death do us part. So you're not only trying to look at different communication styles, you're trying to look at different comprehension styles, right? I always tell people relationships are a beautiful thing. Marriage is a beautiful thing, but it's work. And if you're not willing to do the work, then don't be in a relationship. It really is that simple, right? Everyone comes with their own baggage of some sort. You just got to pick what baggage do I want to pick, you know?
Yeah. And whether you're willing to help each other work through that baggage and help each other grow and learn from it too.
Oh yeah, it's a big one, you know. So I tell people, you know, make sure you love that person. You're crazy about that person. You want to. I could see my life. I when you know, if you get sick, I can see myself caring for you. If you got crippled, honestly, if I want to love you that much, because this is gonna be work, right? Maybe that's just the way I look at it, but it's true. So if I'm gonna put it, relationships are an investment. I want to make good on my investment. This is my time. This is my money. This is my name. This is my business, right? I just know for me, it's not going to be with no joker. I'll tell you that. I work too hard. It's work. It's work. So yeah, absolutely. Yes to all that you said.
So somebody asked in the last, I really want to know this question. Somebody asked in the last podcast that we did if mental health is related to cheating. What are your thoughts on that?
Cheating is cheating. Stop trying to blame everything on everything. We have too much of a sensitive society. If you cheat, it's a choice. Listen, I had my dog, this is a true story, Strawberry, that my parents told me at 8 years old. I was at my grandmother's house. I always thought until I was my age now that Strawberry ran away, until my sister told me my parents gave her away because she was too much work. Am I going to cheat on my partner because my parents gave my dog away? Come on, I'm simplifying it, but we can use anything as an excuse. Take ownership of your behavior. If you cheat, that's a conscious choice. That's where I stand.
That's like Star said earlier. Some people use their circumstances as an excuse too. You know, and
yeah, and that is true. But it's
some use it as motivation.
It's your choice how you use it. I tell my clients all the time, you're here and you're at a crossroad, right? The invisible baggage that I come to because of therapy, guilt, shame, loss, grief, right? Abuse, addiction, right? Parents not being there. Those are all invisible weights that we carry. Now, I can choose to live the rest of my life carrying that weight and being okay. But I can choose that also at a pinnacle in my life to say, I don't want to carry that. So when that stuff starts getting lifted of shame and guilt, guess what? I start feeling better. I start feeling freer. And guess what happens when I'm better? Everything attached to me becomes better, right? It's what you want to do with it. You don't have to go to therapy. There's some people are mandated, but some aren't, right? Most people aren't. So it's your choice. No one's forcing you to look at your stuff. It's your choice whether you want to live with it for the rest of your life.
That makes me think about, so my friend called me this morning, right? And she was going through some of her own, she had experienced a lot of fears and irrational like anxiety coming up, and I was helping her. I actually helped her narrow it down to something that occurred when she was 6 years old and when she was 17 that she was holding on in her nervous system. And so that was kind of compiling it. But what I ended up saying to her, right, is similar to what you're saying, right? Like with the choices. I always had this thing ever since I was in college, and I heard some girls would be like, I don't cause drama. Drama comes to me. And I was always like, there's one thing that is common among all of that.
See, when you hear that, that's when you take note, like, right.
So when I heard that, I was like, I'm going to go over here and avoid this person forever.
No, it's true. You know, this is the thing. I can sit with you and do a genogram, and genograms go into every relationship and part of your life, and we can dig deep. I can, people tell me like, I cry at my first session with you. What did you do? Well, I'm trained to do that. But once we become self-aware, where do we go? We're in self-aware. Yes, we are touching base with the inner child, but we should make progress with that, right? So it's really what I do with it. Now that I have this knowledge, I'm accountable, right? Mm-hmm. I know why I might be angry. I know why I might be sad. I know why I might be depressed. What do I do with that now? Let me learn some skills, and I have to apply it.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit of an unconventional therapist, like the way I think, but I really am passionate about, I think pendulums swing very, very severely, right? People in our society, they're either all in or all out. And, trauma is a huge thing. It's a real thing. We understand that. But to use it for every maladaptive behavior we have in each person, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
If I'm in the knowledge of what I've been through and my trauma, right, and the things I need to work on, I'm responsible for that. Yeah. Whether I let it whether I let it weigh me down and use as a crutch my whole life, well, how successful you think that person's going to be? How fulfilled is that person going to be? How content is that person going to be?
Yeah.
How grateful? How thankful?
The things that you mentioned in like the spiritual space, people refer to that as like shadow work, right? Like accessing the things that you keep hidden in your shadows and integrating that within you, allowing yourself to accept it, be compassionate with it, and love yourself. So that sounds similar to what you're saying, which is like the work that you do once you find out the circumstances or the trauma. What do you do with it? Well, you take accountability for it and you choose not to let it own you and for it to be the driving factor.
I like that. I like that, Vicki. Choose for it not to let it own you. That's good. That's good. You know what? I'm going to use that. Let me take note of that right now.
Hey, copyright, don't get tricked.
No, that's so good. That's so good. I remember, that's exactly it. It's doing the work, becoming aware of it. And then, where do I go from it? I'll share a powerful moment in my own therapy, and I'll never forget this, right? I do this for a living. I'm passionate about what I do. And I remember in a session with my therapist, I was sitting there on her couch, and she's excellent at what she does. And I would be crying within 5 minutes. And I was like, this is uncomfortable. And one thing she said to me, and I'll never forget this, she said, don't run from that feeling. Like, you can feel bad, Tanisha. Like, sit with that feeling. And I was so accustomed, because what I do, right, and in the field I am, and just my own personality, I never really sat with that. And she was like, you have a hard time being uncomfortable in your uncomfortable feelings. And I was just like, she's right. You know what I mean? Like, of course we want to get the skills and the coping skills and the self-awareness and the understanding and in touch with my inner child. It's all important, but in order to get through, I got to go through. Like, I have to feel that and recognize it. One of my biggest issues in today's society is people are, I get it, on this positive vibes, trend. I move forward. I don't look back. Now that's a good resiliency mindset to have, but let us not be delusional.
Mm-hmm.
I met somebody, and this wasn't even in therapy. It was just somebody I met in a social setting, and they had like lost their dog. I'll never forget this. Like, a dog who was like a support dog, like a child to them. And they really, like, they mentioned it, but they wanted to keep telling me, like, but I'm good. I don't look back. I'm going to get a new dog. Me and my family are good. And I'm like, well, with what I do, I'm like, are you convincing me or you?
Yeah.
But almost to the point where they're completely denying they even, I wanted to be like, did you have a dog? Like, did you have a dog, and did the dog die? Like, let's not be delusional. Like, it's about accepting and taking accountability and it's okay to recognize that trauma happened and bad things happened. I'm just making the choice to move on.
Yeah, I've seen that referred to as toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing, where you just only want to stay in the positive. Like, you ignore all the negative and you just only want to stay in the positive.
Right.
That ignores like a huge part of being human.
Oh yeah. I mean, somebody, everything's toxic to them when it's toxic positivity, my parents are toxic. My friends are toxic. Oh my God, you're acting negative. You're toxic. No, honey, you're just delusional. Like, that's not in reality. Reality based is going to be a gamut of emotions, because we're human, and that's just who we are, so absolutely. There's some people that go the whole other way. I mean, some of them are very popular. They're social media stars, TikTok stars, but we want balance. That's our goal.
And another thing I wanted to get into before we wrap it up is anxiety. Did you see over the last year people having more anxiety with the COVID pandemic? And because that was another thing a friend of mine talked to me about. Because now some people, they won't go outside. I got a friend that's here right now. He's here with me and my family. I go play basketball with him, but his wife won't come out. But I'm just like, he's here and going home, but she's dealing with something where I can't go out there. Like, I can't deal with that, not yet and stuff. So is that something you've seen a lot more within this past year?
Oh, absolutely. For people that didn't have anxiety, you throw in a pandemic, and you throw in what we thought was going to be 2 weeks of quarantining that lasted into like months, right?
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 months, maybe even more, depending on your situation. And then those who had anxiety, you sprinkle on a pandemic, and all those, it was a lot of people regressed. A lot of people were triggered. A lot of people experienced anxiety that they never felt like they've even had an issue with anxiety. So absolutely. I think I can speak for most therapists, if not all, that I have one client who's ready for discharge, and I have 4 more waiting. Like, there actually is a shortage of really available resources and therapists. Every therapist I know is booked. Trying to fit in clients, you know what I mean? Because people were really triggered by all this, and then what do we have? We have the media outlet, right? Conspiracy theorists. What's the news outlet? Am I watching Fox News? Am I watching CNN? What side do I go politically? And I always say, like, the lines of like racism and intolerance, they've always been there, but in like the last 2 years, I would say, they kind of were just magnified, like 3D. Like, you really could not ignore them anymore, even if you tried, because of the nationwide, worldwide attention it was, things were brought to. So to answer your question simply, absolutely, there's been a rise in anxiety.
Yeah,
I think all you have to do is just go on your Facebook news feed, and you'll just see like 70% of the posts are just like judgmental, fearful, or propaganda, all that stuff.
Absolutely. It's true.
Yeah, and you talk about the shortage of therapists, and I was trying to do my research as well as possible. And another thing I was gonna ask about, it was hold on, let me make sure I get the correct question that I had. Psychiatrists versus therapists, and I hear it's even shorter. Like it's the demand for psychiatrists is higher, but it's a shortage of them even more than it is therapists, and it's harder to get in with them. And then like I said, doing the research and seeing that they're like to get a psychiatrist, they help put you on the right meds if you need it. They help you understand your brain a lot more and stuff. So do you want to just touch on that somewhat?
If there's a shortage in both, absolutely.
No, yeah, obviously it's the shortest of both, but like the difference of it, because I coming in before I researched it, would have thought like, oh, they're the same thing, let's go to them. It's me not knowing, not having the proper education of like somebody telling me, like, if I'm thinking, I might be looking it up and stuff. But like I said, I did research on it and seeing that, oh, it's a difference in it. And
no, that's absolutely a valid question, because some people don't know there's a lot of titles out there, right?
Yeah.
So who does what and why do they do it? So both good therapy is both combined. Psychiatrists are going what we do, medication management, right? So oftentimes in therapy, and I'm somebody, there's different views on that. Every therapist treats differently in some ways. I like to do rule of thumb like this. If you coming to me and your symptoms are so high of anxiety, what's a red flag to that? I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't go to work, right? I'm fearful to see my family, I'm fearful to step outside. Your symptoms are interrupting your daily routine. So before even talk therapy, right, is going to be effective, your symptoms are here. 45 minutes to an hour on my couch is not really going to touch that if you're fearful of going outside. So I need you to have a psychiatric evaluation who can look at your symptoms medically a little bit more, right? Psychologically, and prescribe medication that can treat those symptoms and bring them to a tolerable level where you can function better. So that's what a psychiatrist does. They're going to prescribe the medication. They're not going to give the talk therapy that we do. They're not going to go into the subconscious like we are. It's how, let's try this medication. This might help with your symptom. I'll see you in a month or 3 months, and make sure to go to your therapist. That's us.
Star asked a good question. How do you decide between like a therapist or a life coach?
What was that?
How do you decide between a therapist and a life coach?
Coaching has become very popular. So what would I say is a good, difference? Therapy is going to be more in the vein of, I would say, deep-seated things like, right, like trauma, grief, loss, abuse, intolerance, being triggered by things like on a regular basis that maybe you have never really dealt with. Then therapy would probably be the better thing for you. Coaching is often more times, it's not clinical work, it's short-term work, right? So coaching a lot of times is, all right, I've done some work, I've been to therapy, or I don't feel like I need therapy, but hey, I just want to go from A to B, right? I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to do that. And that can be in different ways. In business, it could be personal, it could be financial, it could be education. So finding a life coach who can give you those skills, right? And that's more like what I would say solution-focused, task-oriented, like interventions. Where we're not going to dive into the subconscious or psychodynamic, but we're going to do like more like the here and now to get you where you need to go.
I think that what you said about the clinical aspect of it, I think that actually makes a really good distinction between therapist and life coach. I'm an intuition coach, so I do go into the subconscious, but I don't do sometimes there's trauma involved, but I'm not the person you go to. If you've got a lot of deep-seated grief or trauma, I would say go to a therapist for that. I'm helping you get more in touch with your intuition. And of course, to get in touch with that, we're going to work through some of the things in your subconscious that's in the way. But I'm not going to be a therapist, and I'm nowhere even close to even wanting to be a therapist, But my friend, she specializes in trauma, so she's a therapist, So the people are going to come to her with the heavy stuff that needs someone to really hold that space for them properly.
Right.
That makes a whole ton of sense.
Yeah, and definitely both should be trained. You know what I mean? But there is a distinct difference between the two. Those that come to me for my coaching program, it's short term, right? There's a very specific goal or goals that we have. And in 9 or 12 weeks, we're going to get to that. And when that's done, that's done. Yep. And there's some that come to me and I'm like, you need therapy. It's not coaching that you need, or vice versa, right? Yeah. So, absolutely. I like that, the way you put that, distinction between the two. And, if anything, a lot of coaches, a lot of therapists will give consultations. Get consultation first. Sometimes people don't know really what it is they need, right? Yep. So, hey, a good practicing therapist or coach is going to refer you to the right person.
Yeah. Or you would hope so.
You would hope so, right?
All right. Now I want to go out on this is what do you think are the 5 misconceptions of mental health?
Ooh.
If you ain't got 5, or you got a couple that the misconceptions that you see.
Oh wow!
I like that.
5 misconceptions. You didn't send me this question before we started, all right? No. Where's my stipend for this? No, I'm just joking. Where's my stimulus, right? No. 5 misconceptions. Number 1, I don't need therapy. I can go on WebMD. Wrong. Don't do that. You cannot self-diagnose yourself. Is there knowledge on Google? Yes. Is there a wealth of information? Yes. Do we live in a digital age? Yes. But you're not a doctor. You're not a specialist. And not everyone is toxic, has trauma, or has terminal illness and is going to die tomorrow.
WebMD is going to say that you have cancer. Let's just face it.
Pretty much, right? Everyone has been freaked out when you go on WebMD, either this is the common cold or I'm dying tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and WebMD, it make me scared to go on there because I'm like, man, I'm bleeding too much. Let me check what it's saying. I'm good. I only got 2 months to live, so I ain't going on that.
I scared a friend that I was dating because he was like, can you look up these symptoms? I'm like, you might have AIDS. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, look, here, I skipped over some of the details, but I was like, yep, check. I think you have AIDS, man.
Vicki just went for the jugular.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
I was like, we're gonna have to just break it off. I don't know what you were doing.
Yeah. So that, that's that. There's the misconception again, self-development. You know what I mean? I don't need therapy. I could just read, this great Tony Robbins self-development. He's a great speaker, by the way. Or whoever, and I'll be okay. You might be, right? But that a lot of times is putting a Band-Aid on something where the wound is deeper, right? I like to make this analogy a lot with therapy, right? The thing is, when you have a scar, at one point that scar was bleeding, but it's healed. So when we have a scar, we can pick at it, but it's not bleeding anymore, right? But it's a reminder of, oh man, I remember when that happened. So a misconception, I'm just going to Barnes and Noble. Listen, I spent $300 on self-development books. I'm good. I don't need therapy. You know what I'm saying? I already know what they're going to tell me. There's nothing they've told me that I can't tell myself. I think that is self-development important? Absolutely. But seek help. If there's things that are out of your scope, it's okay if you don't know everything. I go to a doctor if I'm having a medical issue because I'm not specialized in medical field, right? I didn't go to 7 + 12 years of school to be a specialist on oncology. I just haven't. So there's things in that field I have no idea about. Doesn't make me lesser of a person or mentally weak, or not intelligent if I seek help with that, Another misconception, therapy takes forever. I'm going to be in therapy for years. Not true. A lot of times, effective therapy, the truth is, in about 6 weeks, you can see real changes. So I like to tell my clients, listen, it takes time, but it doesn't take long, right? If you show up and you have a good therapist who's going to get into the work with you, in about 6 weeks, you'll see things. Now, could it go longer? Absolutely. Are there benefits to long-term therapy? Absolutely. Depends on the trauma of somebody. Somebody who's severely traumatized, 6 weeks might just be getting right into the beginning stages. You might just be getting started, right? It's like somebody that has 300 pounds to lose as opposed to 10. Those plans are going to look different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a different concept, a different way of doing it. Same thing with therapy. I'm going to be in therapy forever and I'm never going to get out. Not true. Effective therapy can really take place in 6 weeks. You could really start seeing change. That's the third one I said, right?
Yeah. There's two more.
Two more. What's another misconception of therapy? All therapists are the same. They all just say the same thing. They're kooks off. They're worse off than me, right? Who hasn't heard that before? Not every therapist is the same. We have different ways and interventions that we use. You have every right to be picky with your therapist. A great benefit for me, if I tell my clients all the time, I believe God sends every client that I have with me, right? Like that I do therapy with, but I might not be the right therapist for you. And that's okay. I could refer you out and you could be with a therapist who's more suited for you. Right. So therapists, it really is, it's like it's not a one size fits all. It's like trying on shoes, right? Trying on clothes. You have to find your fit. You have to find your comfortability. And you have to find somebody that you feel like you can be honest with. Right? I have to feel like I can really tell you my stuff. If I feel barriers that I really can't be me or you might not understand me, it's okay to maybe, hey, if I'm a Hispanic female and I want a Hispanic therapist. Why? Because I feel like they would understand my culture more. I don't have to do 3 weeks of explaining why I think the way I think, right? They get it. They were
pay to explain yourself.
Right, exactly. So, it's not a one size fits all, and the fifth one, there's going to be multiple, there's not one answer for it all. You know what I'm saying? It's not one intervention. Again, people are like, I know what I need. I'll have their, clients tell me that I know what my diagnosis is and I know what you need to do to help me. So why'd you come to me? Like, if you have all the answers, am I just being paid just to sit here and be like, you're right? It's a therapist is going to really give a tailored treatment plan to what you need. It's not a one size fit all for your clients. You have to see where that person is, and you always want to start where that client is. Everyone comes to therapy in different stages of their life. There might be their first time. I clients, hey, I had to wait 10 years to come to therapy because I had so much shame and doubt about starting this. Or somebody, you're my 50th therapist. I fired all of them. Okay. They're starting at different places, right? So a good therapist is going to really understand you. They're really going to start where you're comfortable and where you're ready to go. And they're going to make a custom treatment plan. Hopefully, that's the hopes, where it's going to help you specifically. Your treatment plan is not going to look like the same for anybody else because it's designed and created and reviewed for you.
Yep, and that is all 5 of them on the spot. There we go.
That's awesome.
Hey, we're gonna wrap it up, and we appreciate Tanisha for joining us. And I feel like we could carry this conversation on for a while.
Yeah.
And it was good. I've learned from it, even when I was dropped out of it for a little bit. And came back and trying to get my double dutch and hop in it. But It was a great conversation. I appreciate having you on the Don't Get Tricked podcast.
And you know,
Go ahead.
I love your passion. I love how much that you want to help people. I love how knowledgeable you are about it. I love how much work that you put into it. And it seems that you still consistently put in work every single day to hone your craft, to be able to be there, to be of service to people. And I think that that is a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate you showing up here.
Thank you so much. You know, we take in our code of ethics, we're lifelong learners. We have to be, you know, we have to know what the trends are. We have to know what's out there. And I'm passionate about this. I often say there is no paycheck, there's no reward that's greater when somebody writes me and says, you've changed my life. There's nothing greater to me, and there will never be anything greater than that.
Yeah.
Because when you can see that change for people, then you're like, man, I could retire on that, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about people becoming the best version of themselves, being whole, being healed, and being better than they were, you know? Really, it's our mindset and what we choose to do with the self-awareness and knowledge that we have. So somebody asked, I just saw my name, I'm sorry. Tanisha, do you do virtual therapy? I do. So you guys can hit me on I think you guys put on the podcast, like, do you put like social media handles and all that good stuff?
Yeah, like I said, yeah. Well, one shout out to social media. We will put it on there because this will be available on YouTube in a day or so. And then, but let them know how to get a hold of you and what you have, you know, because you offer different sessions for people, you know, packages.
Right. Well, you know, I start off with everybody that might be interested in working with me. We got to see what you're coming in for, you know. So you can definitely hit me up on, you know, social media, Twitter, Instagram. I'm Tanisha C. It's really simple. Tanisha Castellanos. That's my Facebook. So you can message me and we take it from there.
Okay. And Vicki, do you do virtual sessions too for your intuition coach?
Yeah, all of my sessions are on Zoom, and Star, you know how to reach out to me. So you can just reach out to me personally if you want to. My Instagram handle is its Vicki Tran, Vicki Tran. If you go on there, you can also see my link tree, which also has like. So full disclosure, I'm way more on the esoteric end in that I have psychic open up within me. So if people want to work with me and just ask me a question, they can also on that link tree. There's a link to ask me a question. It's only $22, and I'll send a video response. I've had people that I send responses to, and then they like find ways to reach me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that was so on point." So if you can just do like a little bit like that too, but I also do sessions on Zoom.
Okay, and like I said, we appreciate you. I don't do no virtual sessions. My virtual sessions is right here.
I do podcasts.
Yeah, I do my virtual. See, this was free therapy, and they don't even realize it because I got a couple stuff out. You know, I kept saying in front of my, but like I said, Tanisha, we appreciate having you. You know, now you're part of the Don't Get Tricked family, and don't be a stranger. And like I said, this conversation can go on because it's a real important topic and subject within humans in itself. You know, and everyone dealing with it, even if they're in denial that they have some type. Yeah. So, and Vicki, we appreciate you. Stepping up and be, like I said, you family always, and
happy to be here.
Yeah, like I said, it's like I said, this was a great conversation, and it could go on, and like I said, it will be on our YouTube page in the day, and you can check our YouTube page at Don't Get Tricked Podcast, and like I said, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. And hope to see y'all back next week when we are live again. And if y'all got any questions, comments, send it to our email or send it to, comment on the video that's on Facebook or comment on the video on YouTube. And we'll how to get a hold of Tanisha and Vicki. Like I said, this is the Don't Get Tricked Podcast. And we out. Peace.
Bye, guys. Thank you.